Vote Loki is a storyline in which Loki wants to become president. Yeah, it's weird. I don't know why Marvel approved this one, but I'm pretty sure you'll enjoy it. It was years ago that Nisa pulled away in fear from her mother. Buildings crumbling as the Avengers slammed into the walls, magical energy shooting all around them. And the day after, the team of heroes held a press conference, shaking the hands with the mayor as they donated the money to fix up the neighborhood that they had destroyed. But shortly after, Nisa and her parents were turned away. The construction was taking longer than it should have, and years passed. The governor then stands before the press explaining that he plans to run for president. But Nisa raises her hand to the crowd. She is now a reporter for the Daily Bugle, and she questions why the government moved some of the money donated by the Avengers into his campaign fund. The man's career is ruined, and the country is once again shocked their politicians would lie to them. Years pass again, and Nisa finds herself waiting to speak with the presidential candidates on one of their debate nights. So is this the spin room? The strange man asks next to her, introducing himself as Lucas. She barely listens to him as he explains how fascinated he is by the American political process. They aren't really competing with their ideas, they're competing with their stories, he explains, pointing out that their facts don't matter, merely whether their voters believe in their story. But as Nisa looks around, she realizes that some of the press badges don't look like hers. And suddenly, people begin to pull guns, shouting at everyone, "Hail Hydra! America, your choice is false! No matter your president, this country will be ash and Hydra will feast on the bitter dust!" The leader shouts. As the candidates begin to enter the room, the terrorists open fire, wounding one of the Secret Service agents, when suddenly Lucas begins to change in a swirl of magic. "Never fear! A god protects you this day." Loki calls to the crowd as he reveals his true form. Magic snakes begin to curl out of his spell, biting into the Hydra agents, and as they fall, Loki lands and watches the candidates being quickly removed from the room. The reporters quickly surround the god, demanding to know how he knew about the Hydra plot. "No, I didn't. I was trying to lay a bit low. I've been rather entertained by this election of yours and thought I'd get a closer look," Loki explains with a smile. The other reporters ask who Loki is voting for, and he continues to smile and explain, "Both of them are liars. Listen, these candidates dance around questions like they're hot irons. They make up half positions based on what they think people want to hear. And then once they're in office, they do whatever they want anyway. If I were president, I'd have the guts to lie to your face," he tells the people as the cameras train on him. And throughout the country, the internet begins to blow up about Loki. Some people supported his statement, others laughed about the god of lies calling people liars. Nisa watches as a reporter asking Loki if he'll run. But he ignores the question and tells everyone it's been fun, his eyes locked on her as he prepares to leave. Days pass and news outlets can't stop talking about Loki's words. And eventually Loki appears on J. Jonah Jameson's news show, where the old journalist cuts through Loki's words, demanding to know the truth. "How do you expect to run for president?" Jameson asks, pointing out that Loki wasn't born in America, but Loki smiles, explaining that during one of his rebirth processes, he was actually born to a couple in Accident, Missouri. "I did happen to come across my birth certificate, should I need it for some reason." Finally, Jameson waves him away, hitting the button for his special guest caller. "Nisa, are you there?" Nisa speaks over the phone, trying to explain to the people of America who Loki truly is. "Wait, is this the Nisa that I met at the debate? The Nisa that was so good to talk to the other day? Before things went sideways. Why are you calling in?" She reminds the country about the neighborhood that was destroyed by the Avengers, destroyed while they were fighting Loki. "You did it, Loki! You leveled the homes of poor working families while trying to fight off the Avengers." She accuses him, and for a moment, Loki tries to come up with an apology, but Nisa continues on. "How is it any different? You're a supervillain trying to make people into making you the ruler of the free world," she shouts, trying to make the people understand that they can't give Loki attention. "You cannot vote Loki as the president." She jumps as Loki's voice comes from behind her in the apartment. "Nisa, I don't want to be a joke," he tells her calmly. On the TV, Jameson looks confused after Loki disappeared, and Nisa reaches for her gun. Loki puts up his hands, finally telling her the truth. "I was thinking about running for president." He explains that he believed what he said about the country's candidate. "I'd be a better president than any of them," but knows that the people of America see him as a joke or a supervillain. "I'd like you to meet the team that I'm putting together, and we can do a proper interview. You'll have total access." She shakes her head, telling the god that she has no interest in being his political pawn. And Loki nods. "I understand. Be as fair or unfair as you like. This little experiment is probably going to go down in flames, but if I win you over." And finally she demands that he leave, and Loki walks out the door, and as he walks away, she finally calls out to him. "What's your headquarters address?" She sighs. Loki smiles as he walks away. The next day, Nisa is met at the front door by Angela of Heaven, head of Loki's security. Loki greets her inside under the disguise of a woman this time, and he leads her through the headquarters, showing her the rabid worshippers who have already begun to believe that he could be the next president. They sit down with Loki explaining that he felt that she would be more comfortable if he appeared as a woman. She pulls out her pen and paper as Loki explains that he wishes to represent all Americans. "Would you like to know some of my policies?" he asks as they begin. And that night, Nisa speaks on the phone with her editor as the man stares at her headline. Loki will burn Washington. And as they finish their call, the editor looks down as a new call comes through almost immediately. He answers, his eyes becoming dull. "Okay," he whispers, trying to type away at the computer, and the next morning, Nisa wakes to her phone going crazy. She glances at it, shocked by the number of missed calls and messages, and quickly goes to her laptop to discover the editor changed her headline. "No!" she gasps as she reads Loki's campaign. Something to get excited for. She turns on the news where everyone is talking about Loki is running for president and referencing her perfect little article. The truth is shocking. Barely anyone read past the front headline. The news changes, showing a close-up of Loki's smiling face. "It is my pleasure to announce my candidacy to become the next president of the United States," he says with a smile, seemingly staring right at her. Anger fills Nisa as a knock sounds at the door, and she rips it open to reveal Thor standing before her. "What is this?" she demands. Meanwhile, a little girl runs through the forest, a toy in her hand. "This is Susie. She's 8 years old. She loves her family, baseball, and Carol Danvers." The image changes, showing a terrorist dressed in black holding a weapon. "This is Octavio von Bardas, leader of the Latvian terrorist group, Doom's Children. He would love to see Susie die." The voice explains that both candidates have requested a meeting with the terrorist over Skype. And then images of Loki fighting the Avengers appear. "I have fought the Hulk on several occasions, and he pounded me into dirt every time. But sometimes you just have to fight. I'm Loki, and I approve this message," he says with a smile as he picks up and holds Susie. Nisa looks up at Thor at her doorway as the goddess of thunder holds the newspaper before her. "Foul herald of destruction! You would sell your country for what? What has Loki promised you?" Thor shouts. Nisa looks at her, questioning whether Thor actually read the article. The goddess stops and begins to scan the words. "Oh, indeed, thou dost burn him," she whispers. Nisa nods, explaining that it doesn't matter since no one seems to get past that headline. "He used me. It didn't matter what I wrote. It all just fed his fire. Can't you just hit him in the head and drag him off to the Norse god jail?" Nisa asks, but Thor shakes her head, explaining that technically, Loki hasn't done anything wrong. The Avengers don't like to get involved in politics. "This is your arena. This is your fight," Thor explains to Nisa as she begins to walk out, and Thor turns back, handing Nisa a Loki campaign door hanger. "This is your door. Good luck, Miss Contreras." And after the goddess left, Nisa stops looking at the flyer. She peeks her head into the hallway, realizing that no other door has them. "Yeah, Thor just gave me a clue," she whispers to herself. That night, a football stadium is alive as a crowd shouts for Loki. The god floats down before them, offering her thanks for their praise. His words wash over them, bringing shouts of jubilation as he speaks of breaking the great political machine. "I am here to make things sane again," he shouts through their thundering cheers. And elsewhere, Nisa steps off the elevator into the headquarters of one of Loki's campaign teams. The office is dark though, with no one around. She moves through the cubicles, hoping to find someone, and reaches a door marked Conference Room 4A. She stands in shock as she looks inside and sees a group of robed figures standing around an altar. They chant quietly to a goat that stands on a raised altar, but as that chant ends, the goat just stares at them blankly. "It didn't work, Gerald. It's still a goat," one of the worshippers points out as he pulls off his mask. Nisa smiles as she takes pictures with her phone, sure that she will be able to reveal the truth about Loki to the world. The story is all over the country the next day. Everyone is talking about it and how Loki's followers are insane for believing him. But as Nisa flips through the news, Loki appears to make a statement, smiling, his big smile at the camera. "Yes, of course I have followers, a religion. I thought I made this clear. I am a god," he explained. He looks at the reporters, pointing out that the Constitution protects the freedom of religion. "Feel free to join ours," he says with a smile. And across the country, believers of Loki are cheering with joy at their candidate once again dancing around the questions of the media. Nisa just groans, sitting back against her couch. The next day, she speeds through traffic, the Hydra agents from the attack finally having come out of their coma, and they're now being transferred to a minimum security prison. She heads out there hoping to get a statement from them about Loki's involvement in the attack, but her eyes widen as she slams on the brakes. The road ahead is blocked by the flaming wreckage of an overturned bus. She stumbles out of her car, shocked by the death and carnage of the agents' bodies, and in the fire, she swears that she sees Angela, head of Loki's security. She rushes back for her phone to get an image on her camera, hoping to capture an image as evidence, but by the time she returns, the warrior goddess has disappeared. "I hate gods," she whispers. That night, a car has stopped outside of the capital of Latveria. The guards search the car and find nothing. With a rap on the hood, the driver is ordered to pull away, and the man gasps for breath, shocked that they managed to make it through without being killed. "That's why we don't bring weapons, but we certainly have them on our way out." At home, Nisa continues to do her research as the first presidential debate begins to air on television. The questions quickly turn to Doom's disappearance in Latveria, and how the country is now divided into two warring factions. How does the US respond? The mediator questions, and both Democrat and Republican candidates agree that US peacekeepers should be sent in to stabilize the region. Loki brings a look of concern from the crowd as he explains that he believes the US troops should not be sent into the region at all, that he learned that righteous violence only brings about more violence. Nisa smiles as she hears those words, quickly bringing up the internet and starting to book a flight to Latveria. "I've got you this time," she whispers. Several days later, a large group of Latverian rebels gather outside of the walls of Doomstadt, capital of Latveria. "Now that we've gathered, it is time to strike," their leader tells them in hushed tones. Another stepping forward, his arms folded. "And a newcomer got a smartphone through so we can document it," he says, nodding to the woman with her face covered. The rebels slip inside of the walls using a secret passageway, and they move through the streets, taking their allies towards Castle Doom. "What are we doing? What are we going to do tonight?" the newcomer asks, holding up her phone to film everyone's responses. The leader turns, pulling down his face mask so that the camera can see him, and he explains that the Latverian New Prosperity Alliance is trying to end the law of Doom, trying to free the city from the clutches of Doom's children. They round the corner, finding a small door. "Okay, this is it, one of Doom's forgotten weapon caches. This will allow us to overpower the Doom's children. Perhaps there's something in there strong enough to take on another nation." Outside of the walls, one of the guards notices the rebels' tracks. Becoming suspicious, he calls in an alarm. Meanwhile, the rebels at the door are having no luck. Strange ruins appear on the door, hitting them with a magical blast. And as the guards begin to move towards them, one of the rebels steps forward. "I believe I see the problem. You see, Von Doom has always made use of technology as well as magical," he says, tracing a ruin into the door and immediately popping it open. As the guards draw closer, the rebels rush in, grabbing everything that they can find that looks like a weapon. One of them reaches to charge his new pistol as the guards order the rebels to get on the ground. And with a simple click, the weapon detonates, destroying part of Doom Castle and taking out both the rebels and Doom's children. In the distance, Loki watches with a smile as he drops the disguise that he was wearing. "Huh, that went great," he says, waving his hand and opening a portal to his current rally, yelling a greeting to the Americans as he steps through. "Say hello to the rest of America," Nisa whispers as she finishes filming Loki interfering with the foreign nations. Nisa smiles as she checks the news, waiting to board her plane. The world is in an uproar over Loki's action, calling him a vigilante on a global scale. Aboard the plane, the other passengers discuss the issue, calling what Loki did a war crime, while the news itself is talking about Loki's campaign being over. But by the time the plane lands, the nation's tune has changed. Nisa is shocked to see that Loki is once again leading in the polls. She checks the headlines on her phone, shocked to see quotes from Loki about doing anything to protect US troops. She turns her head, hearing the same passengers talking about how the media is trying to do anything to turn people against Loki. "They almost got me! He's got my support again," the woman says. Nisa turns to the large TV and sees a smiling image of Loki, which proclaims that he might be the next president. I can't, I'm done!" Nisa sighs, lowering her head. Now it is 5 days until the election for president, and the news is covering nothing but Loki and his lead in the polls. Nisa sighs. Her apartment is a mess, scattering of takeout containers and dirty dishes covering the counters as she talks to her mom. She asks about her cousins in Peru and if they should maybe visit for a while, when suddenly her mom's words hit her hard. "You want to stay if Loki becomes president? How can you like him? He's the one who blew up our old apartment." She doesn't understand how her mother can like him. But on the news, Loki is suddenly stopped by a glowing man. "Ah, a fellow superhuman. I'm glad you're here. I have very reasonable plans for mutants, or inhumans, or whatever you are," he tells him. "I'm going to save America!" the man shouts in anger, but Angela is there, her sword cutting the man's arm off and batting him away before he can explode. She then turns and looks at Loki. I would have words now, she says simply. And Nisa watches as the cameras continue to fill. Loki and Angela exchange a few whispers, and finally Angela turns, pulling out a cell phone. As if on cue, Nisa's phone begins to beep. Nisa Contreras, I have information about my brother that you may want. Make me an offer, the Asgardian says when Nisa picks up. That night, Nisa travels to a rundown building, and inside she finds Thor and Angela waiting for her. We can both agree that Loki must not be elected, Thor tells her after they greet. Nisa turns to Angela, shocked that Loki's head of security is fighting against him. I call America my home now. I do not want Loki as president. Are you insane? Loki anticipates an open attack, but infiltration, Angela tells her. They agree on the price for Angela's information, and Nisa turns over a lifetime subscription to the Daily Bugle. Thor then turns to her. You didn't tell me that that was the deal, she says. I enjoy the crossing of words. She explains that since she saved his life earlier in the day, she asked him about his involvement with Hydra as payment. She motions around them, explaining that they are standing in Hydra's cell base of operations, Thor pointing to one of the computer screens. That is their leader. I believe you met him. Thor asks, and Nisa gasps as she recognizes Loki's disguise as Lucas from the President debate. Thor nods, explaining that Loki staged the attack to gather people's attention. Publish this, Nisa. The election is only days away. The people have a right to know, Thor tells her, and Nisa nods. You got it, but if this doesn't convince people that a supervillain is running for president, nothing will. The story, of course, is blasted all over the news the next day, and as Loki left his headquarters, a large crowd is gathered outside. Some waved signs calling for Loki to be imprisoned, others read the news and weren't surprised. I thought they figured that out when the Hydra guys died, one Loki supporter points out. Dude did what he had to, another nods. And as Loki steps out, he admits that he never claimed to not have set up the whole event. But I did manage to take out an entire branch of Hydra while I did it, didn't I? People begin to argue amongst themselves. Anti-Loki voters point out that Loki is evil, and all those who follow him are also evil. Pro-Loki voters jump into the fight, pointing out that the establishment is evil, and that people are stupid if they don't vote for Loki. As the protest turns into an all-out brawl, Loki makes a quick exit. And more days pass and the country seems to be going crazy. The stock market crashes, neighbors fight against neighbors for their beliefs. And now it's a day before the election and Nisa is watching the carnage across the country on her television when there's another knock at her door, so she gets up to answer it. I'd rather not speak anymore about Loki, she calls out to whoever it is, but looking through the peephole, she reveals that it's Loki. Hi Nisa, it's Loki, he says through the door. She lets him in to thank him for not teleporting in. See, I'm learning, he shouts with joy. Loki explains to her that he didn't want any of this, that if people don't want to vote for him, that's their right. But this fear, this violence, it has to stop, he tells her. He turns back to the window and asks her to do another interview to speak the truth to the people of America. I promise I will not tell another lie, he says to her, but Nisa isn't convinced, questioning whether he'll spin what she writes again. We'll do it live, he says, snapping his fingers. In a blur of motion, Nisa and Loki are standing on a stage before a live studio audience of his strongest believers. Good evening, everyone. I'm Loki, and I'm running to be your next president. He introduces everyone to Nisa and explains that he will be giving an impromptu interview. Across the country, the broadcast takes over everyone's televisions, forcing them to watch Loki. And he turns to Nisa and asks, "What is your first question?" No, she says simply, and he looks at her in confusion as Nisa explains that every time she tries to reveal something about Loki, he spins it so it helps him, and she motions to the crowd. I'm done talking to you. Talk to them, she tells him, and there's a brief pause before Loki's smile returns. He turns to the crowd asking, and do you have any other questions? The first gentleman steps forward asking if Loki was really born in Maryland. No, but my birth certificate is authentic, he says, letting the crowd know that he'll let the courts puzzle over it instead of explaining it to the crowd. Another woman steps forward asking what will happen when Loki implements a single-payer healthcare system. But that's when an angry man jumps up in the crowd, accusing the woman of not listening and that there would be no way that Loki would implement a government-run healthcare system. As everyone begins to shout and argue, they all finally turn to Loki for an answer, and he sighs, explaining to him that he has been campaigning so hard, trying to fight against the terrified media, that he hasn't really had time to sit down and really think on the issues that are present in the country. You haven't decided on anything yet? The woman asks, shocked. I care too much about the issue to take a firm stance right now, Loki explains. More questions begin to come in. Gun control, Mutant Registration Act, the superhero community, but Loki doesn't have an answer for any of it. He explains that while this group wants one thing, there are others in America that want other things, and that he represents all of the people of America. Nisa leans back on the couch, pointing out that Loki wanted to be president so badly that he didn't think of anything beyond the other candidates being bad. The crowd gets angry with Loki, pointing out that he said that he would destroy the machine. Did I? Do you even know how your own government works? Loki asks, anger creeping up in his voice. He stares at the crowd, looking into the camera so that the people of America can see him. You'll all still vote for me. You have no better option. Stop lighting cars on fire, you idiots. That's all I wanted. Have a Super Tuesday, he shouts. And with those words, the broadcast ends as Loki is gone. Election day. The news calls the polls across the country showing that Loki has lost in all but a few states. Watching the news, Jane Foster smiles. Angela cheers, tossing her plate of pie, and Rocket and Groot shake their heads. The Daily Bugle gets a hold of Nisa, commenting how she's the only one in the media that always spoke out against Loki. That she saw him for what he really was, and Nisa smiles on the phone as they offer her a nice job with her own cable show. As she hangs up the phone, the voice speaks from behind her. I lost, Loki tells her, and Nisa smiles at him, commenting that if he's so sure that he lost, maybe he should make a concession speech. I'll let them sweat it out while they count California. So this whole experience got you your own cable show? Loki asks, a look of innocence coming across his face as he looks up. I wonder, who would believe that in my quest to do the wrongs of my past, I'd stage an entire presidential campaign simply to help make the random destruction of a little girl's home lead to a brave woman's career of speaking out against bad politics? Nisa is shocked for a moment before she speaks. Loki arranged everything to help her. No. You're definitely full of it. You didn't do any of this. You didn't arrange this. I did this, not you, she says with a disbelieving smile, and Loki turns back from the window, beginning to float away. Are you sure? The best thing you can do is affect change on a small individual level. Bye, Nisa, he says as he drifts away. She watches him for a moment before whispering goodbye. And as he drifts into the night air, Loki shakes his head. Yes, maybe it was the moral all along. He muses, reaching for his cell phone, dialing someone, and he smiles. Yes, you weren't doing so well until I split the vote. Yes, I think that would be a very adequate act of gratitude. Congratulations, I concede, he says to the other candidate. And there you have it, today's full story. I hope you guys enjoyed, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell right here on this channel, as it will only ever be receiving full stories from the other channel. And if you want to see the videos as they come out, make sure you go check out the Comicstorian main channel, where you get 5 days of videos a week. I'll see you next time.